Shalom and welcome to Jerusalem Hebrew's weekly review of the top 10 most frequent words in each week's Torah reading. This week's Torah reading is Parashat SHEMOT. It is the first Torah reading in the book of Exodus, from Exodus chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 6, verse 1. Included in the most frequent words of this week's Torah portion will also be the top 3 most frequent 2-word phrases and the top 3 5 or more word phrases in this week's Torah portion. Repeat after me. Feel free to pause and replay as needed. The number 1 most frequent word in this week's Torah portion is eth. 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 This H is silent here. We are using what I call the expanded transliteration. It is geared toward people who have little to no background in reading Hebrew, much less Hebrew transliterations, so that they will read it more closely to how the word should be pronounced, even if they read the transliteration using the assumed conventions of regular English reading. All right, so eth, as opposed to eat or something. Eth is without an equivalent in the English language. There's nothing equivalent. The closest we could get is perhaps the word at, coincidentally sounds similar, such as he looked at him. So in the same way that the word at is telling you where the action of looking is directed toward, it's at him, so it's directed toward him. So also this word et in Hebrew. The difference is that we use this word et in Hebrew to let the reader know that whatever action had just been mentioned before appearance of the word et, that action that was just mentioned before is directed toward whatever proper noun comes after the word et, right? Not only proper noun, but any definite noun, any specific thing. And so that's the word et in Hebrew. Sometimes it's kind of like the word at, but sometimes we use it when you would not say at in English. So that's not a perfect translation. And it doesn't work to translate it that way. So you'll come to understand this word eth more comfortably as you continue and progress in your learning of Hebrew. Second most frequent word in this week's Torah reading is el. El means toward or to. It indicates direction. El. Now, yes, it sounds very much like the Hebrew term often translated as God, el, but there is a subtle difference. In modern Hebrew, they don't really make a difference. In Ashkenazi Hebrew, they would pronounce the term usually translated as God as el, and in Yemenite tradition, they would pronounce the word usually translated as God as el, and they would pronounce this as al. I distinguish between the two with a subtle difference. This one I would pronounce as al with an kind of like the word in apple, whereas the word usually translated as God, I'd pronounce it as el. So as opposed to a. And a. If they have two different symbols, it's an indication that the Masoretes who innovated these symbols to preserve ancient Hebrew pronunciation knew a distinction in the pronunciation of this vowel, segol, as opposed to the vowel under the word usually translated as God, el. So el and al, pronounce this as al. If you want to be more exacting, it's between the sound of sere, the 2 dot symbol, which we have here, under here. So the sound of segol, that's this vowel under the sheen. Also the same vowel we have here in number 2 that we're just talking about. That is segol, makes an a sound. It is a sound that's between the sound of and the sound of patah, which is an ah sound, such as we have here, the line. Bo'u namshich. Let's continue. Bo'u namshich. Number 2. Wayomer. Wayomer. Wayomer means and he said. It literally means and he shall say. It's really the imperfect tense. So the tense flips due to the reversive vav. This is a letter that we add at the beginning of a word that in biblical Hebrew often reverses the tense of the verb. So if you'd remove it, it would be, and he shall say, but you add it and it means, and he said. This is one of the main differences between modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew. Vayomer. Now, be careful not to read this expanded transliteration as Yomayir, Mayir. If you're doing that, then this is the wrong transliteration for you. You're probably already suited for a more advanced transliteration. This current transliteration, which I call the expanded transliteration, is intended for people who have little to no experience in learning Hebrew. And so it's transliterated in a way that the average English speaker is more likely to read. So if I had transliterated the final syllable with just an ER, the average English speaker would say Yomer, Yomer, instead of Yomer. But the average English speaker, when they see AIR, they think air. So they're going to say Yomer, and that is more correct than Yomer. All right, what Yomer? And he said, next word, Moshe, Moshe. Moshe is Moses. Moshe literally means draw out. Per the explanation given in Exodus chapter 2, verse 10, it is not a common word in the Bible. Extremely rare. Means to draw out, and it may be alluding to Moses' purpose of drawing Israel out of Egypt in the same way that Moses was drawn out of the Nile. Moshe. Number 5, Adonai. 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 A D with a dot under it lets you know that it is a TH sound that is voiced. That means you are activating your vocal cords while producing the TH sound. It means it is the TH sound like in the word that or them, as opposed to the TH in words like think or three. So this is a voiced TH. Adonai. Adonai. And the voiced TH sound is the sound of the Hebrew letter Daled when there is no dot inside of it. So Adonai is not the correct or true reading of this four-letter name of God, the most holy name of God in Hebrew, but rather it is a non-substitute. No one disputes that it is a substitute. Everyone is in agreement that it is a substitute. And when we say Adonai, when reading the four-letter most holy name of God, it is a requirement that we have in mind the actual meaning of the name and not the literal meaning of what we're saying, right? So the literal meaning of the name has to do with he who causes existence and whose existence is timeless. So he shall be as he is presently. Yihya as he huwa, right? Yihya, he shall be as he exists. Huwa, right? So Yihya plus Huwa is this name. And it is more accurately translated as the Eternal One, but usually translated in most Bible translations as the Lord in all caps. So it's difficult to really give full appreciation for this name in just one word. And that is part of the difficulty with it. It's truly a deep and profound name. It doesn't simply mean Adonai, which means my masters. Rather, it entails the fact that the true God, that true divinity, is unchanging and self-existent, timeless, transcendent one, absolute deity. And this is the only word in Hebrew that truly refers to absolute deity. Elohim does not, Eloah does not, and El does not. Elohim, Eloah, and El can refer to absolute deity, can refer to the true God, but do not inherently mean the true God. Only this word inherently refers to the true God. Adonai is still a good substitute because the Adonim in the temple were sort of the foundational sockets that held up the pillars of the temple. And figuratively, it is true for the Creator that He is, so to speak, the pillar of all existence. He upholds all existence. He is the foundation, what binds all existence together, figuratively, not literally, not tangibly. All right, milah haba'ah, next word, Number 6 of the most frequent words in this week's Torah portion is Yisrael. Yisrael means Israel, and it's constructed of 2 Hebrew roots. Yisra means he shall struggle, or he struggles, fights, and it can also mean rules. And El, which means a legendary power. And the legendary part is part of the connotation of the word. It's not the literal meaning of the word. Right? So legendary power. It may refer to the true God or other so-called powers. So Yisrael is one who struggles with El, whether that be that they struggle against false gods or struggle with false gods within one's own mind, false concepts, false beliefs, or whether they struggle and overcome those false beliefs because they struggle with the help of the true legendary power, the Lord of all existence, Adonai, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shanamo. Blessed be He and blessed be His name. Number 7, Asher. Asher. Asher can mean that, which, or who. When Asher means which or who, it is not intended in a question sense of the word, but rather in a statement sense. So Asher can mean that, it's working as a conjunction in a word or a pronoun. And it can also be which or who as pronouns, like the person who spoke to me, as opposed to who is standing outside, right? Asher. It functions very much like the word que in Spanish, if anyone is familiar with Spanish of our viewers. Number 8, par'o. Par'o. Par'o means Pharaoh. It is the ancient title of the kings of Egypt in biblical times, and it originates from the ancient Egyptian terms which means great, and per, which is a house. So it refers to the great house and the king's palace, in reference to the king's palace, and that came to be synonymous with the king himself. And this is just an example of how Afro-Asiatic languages are very figurative in their applications of terms. Pharaoh. Number 9, le. Le means no, not, or don't. And whether it is no, not, or don't depends on context. Le. That's with an aleph. Do not confuse it for le with a vav, lamed vav. Le with a vav means to him or for him, and le with an aleph means no, not, or don't. Number 10, Elohe. 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 Elohe basically on a surface level means God of or gods of, although the word Elohe does not inherently mean uncreated deity, right? The same way that the word king can refer to God, but the word king does not inherently mean uncreated deity. So also this term Elohe does not mean an uncreated deity, but it can refer to the true uncreated deity, right? The word Elohe connotes powerful lordship. And this word Elohe is always plural. It is never grammatically singular. Elohe is literally the of form of Elohim. So Elohe literally is like Elohim of. You drop the mem in Elohim and the vowel turns to an e to make it of. Elohe. Like Elohim of. Elohim and Elohe are the same words, just 2 forms of the same word. Connotes powerful lordship, a powerful authority. It could be plural or singular, but grammatically it is always plural, never singular. And that has no bearing on whether it's referring to something plural or singular. Even Moses is referred to as an Elohim, right? Elohim is not a plural of El. The plural of El is not Elohim. The plural of El is Elim, Elim, not Elohim. So these words, El, Eloh, Elohim, although they're all translated the same way by most translations, they do not all have the same connotation. They can all refer to the true God, but none of those words, neither El, Eloah, or Elohim, inherently mean absolute divinity. It all depends on context. All right, the top three most frequent two-word phrases in the Torah portion. Number one, B'nai Yisrael. B'nai Yisrael means children of Israel. B'nai, sons of, literally sons of Israel. B'nai means sons of. Ben is a son. B'nai are sons of. The same way that the E in Elohe makes it of, so also the E in B'nai makes it son of. Yisrael. Israel, sons of Israel, children of Israel. Number two, Vayomer Adonai. Vayomer Adonai. And the Eternal said, literally, and the Tetragrammaton, the most holy four-letter name of God, referring to the fact uh, that He is the cause and He is the cause of existence and the timeless existence, who shall be as He presently is, right? And He shall say, and the transcendent one, the eternal one, uh, literally shall say, but the tense is reversed by the reverse of Vav. Number three, El Par'a. El Par'a means to Pharaoh. El can mean to or toward, depending on context. Number three, phrases that are 5 words and over in this week's Torah portion that appear more than once. These are the top three. These are not complete verses, right? But these are phrases. Number one, Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yis'haq, We'elohe Ya'aqov. We'll read it again. Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yis'haq, We'elohe Ya'aqov. This is a very common word. It appears in daily Jewish prayers. It is part of the beginning of the daily central Jewish prayer that is created and corresponds to the daily sacrifices in the temple. May it be speedily rebuilt in our days. So it means the powerful authority of Abraham, the powerful authority of Isaac, and the powerful authority of Jacob. Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yis'haq, Elohe Ya'aqov. Some people say this is a hint at the Trinity, but those who say that need to make up their mind. If Elohim means plural and is an evidence for the Trinity, and then this also is evidence for the Trinity, then what you get is much more than a Trinity. You get more like a ninety. Uh, because if Elohim or Elohe refers to the Trinity, and then you also want it to be hinted at in the fact that there are three here, well, then what you have is 3 plus 3, which is 9. So really, it's better to just learn Hebrew from the people who inherited it from the prophets instead of inventing ideas that have no basis in the historical usage of the language. One more time. Elohe Avraham, Elohe Yisroch, Elohe Yaakov. Number two. Nelcha derech sheloshet yamim במדבר ונזבחה לאדוני. לאדוני. One more time. נלכה נא נלכה נא דרך שלושת ימים במדבר ונזבחה לאדוני. We shall go now a 3 days way into the wilderness, and we shall sacrifice unto the Eternal One. Number 3, El, Eres, Zovaf, Halav, Vash. One more time. El, Eres, Zovaf, Halav, udvash, udvash in the Hebrew. El eres zovath halov udvash, for the land of a flow of milk and date honey. All right, so I tried to translate it more literally than normally is, but this is normally read toward the land of milk and honey or toward the land flowing with milk and honey. But grammatically, it's the land of the flow of milk and honey, and that is just the way that Hebrew is written and spoken. Right? Languages are not always an exact equivalent of our native languages. In English, when you translate it, you would translate it in a way that makes sense to the English ear. All right. So that concludes our reading of the most frequent words in this week's Torah portion. If you would like to find more resources like this, you can find us on Patreon/Authentic Torah or at our website, Jerusalem Hebrew, right there. Make sure you subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and we will try to respond to you as soon as we can. Shalom uvracha, Shabbat shalom.